At what age is it appropriate for a parent to discuss human sexuality with a child? At what age is it appropriate for a teacher to discuss human sexuality with a student in their care? For parents, these are two of the most important questions they will ever have to face. Now, according to a Washington Post University of Maryland poll, most Marylanders, 66%, say that discussions of LGBTQ acceptance is inappropriate for elementary school students. The report also found that nationally, 71% of all Americans are accepting of gay and lesbian relationships as morally acceptable. So this presents a dichotomy. Nancy, in Maryland, the updated health framework approved by the State Board of Education in 2019 supports the introduction of gender identity at ages as early as pre-kindergarten. This runs directly counter to the findings of the Washington Post University of Maryland poll. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't have a child in the Montgomery County public school system anymore, but I do have grandchildren, a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. And, it's hard to have a reaction without seeing the material that's being employed. Mostly, I think they talk about like accepting people who are different one way or the other, which is important for, tolerance of every sort. And, there's a bullying issue that's out there that requires some attention by the school system. So I would assume that that's wrapped up together. But, discussing even that term, it wouldn't make any sense to a young child. So I wouldn't blow this out of proportion unless I saw the, and I'm not suggesting you are, but unless I saw the material that they're discussing and how it's being presented, it's really very difficult to have an opinion. And I doubt they spend a lot of time on it. That would be my reaction. I'm uninformed really about the actual experience.
Well, I think, but I think part of that, if the fact that we're uninformed is there hasn't been really a great deal of discussion, particularly when you look at what was decided in 2019, just on the cusp of the COVID shutdowns. We really haven't been given sufficient information about what they're doing in the schools is my feeling.
That's always the case. I mean, unless you're spending time in the classroom every day, I used to do that way back when I had children in the school system. I'd spend a lot of time in the classroom. Most parents don't. They don't have the time. And so, we don't approve it all. Their choice. I wouldn't disapprove of the math system. I can't figure it out. But, they have systems in place. And it's important for us to respect the systems until we know what the actual real conversation is that we're troubled by. And that's, at least that would be my view.
So Mark, the Post reporting on this poll points out that how educators teach about gender identity and sexuality has become a major part of education, which is, kind of what Nancy spoke about when they said if they're talking about tolerance versus more specific, explicit sexuality. How do you balance these concerns?
I was going to say, and I think that is what gives a lot of parents concern, is they're worried that there is a more explicit content than is appropriate for young children, and B, it's very easy once that conversation is begun to get into sort of more value charged commentary. We've had where there may be a conflict between, there really are choices to be made as to what priorities are. And I think in that context, with sex education, we've had a longstanding principle to allow for parents to be the sort of arbiter as to whether or not the kids participate or not. And that reflects an appreciation for the sort of paramount role that parents have in their kids' values.
Well, but this is a real issue.
Remember, some of these systems in the school system have been put in place because parents have not done the job that they might do. That's why sex education at the higher levels is really important, because some parents are not good at it and really don't do it.
I understand.
And That's not easy.
The process is set up effectively as an opt-out, and it gives parents the opportunity. It always becomes kind of an issue if you do opt out, does that stigmatize the child in some way? But that has been the process before. But I think parents are worried that there may be an advocacy for a point of view that is contrary. And right, as Casey and you mentioned, we just don't know enough about the content of the curriculum to feel comfortable about that.
But here's what we do know, and I'm going to go to Nancy on this. I mean, it's not an academic issue. The same week that the Washington Post University of Maryland poll came out, there was a feature on WTOP radio, a report that Montgomery County Public Schools has just detailed a 582% increase in the number of students identifying as gender nonconforming in the past 2 years. So how do you explain, such an increase if it's not linked to what's being taught in the schools?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I know what gender nonconforming is. I'm not sure that the children know. But 58%, that,
No,
percentages.
582%, not 58.
582%. So there was one, another, or five. We don't know. We don't know the numbers. So this is the world we live in these days. And children evolve. I mean, we want to encourage our children to be comfortable in their environment and make their choices, most of us. And I guess I don't know what this means on the academic level. Looking at the reality of it and how that's actually implemented would be much more helpful for me, so that I could actually have an opinion about it. Statistics are just numbers. Are they reflective of?
But they point out a trend. They point out a trend. And we have only a minute left. I'm going to let Mark have the last question. Mark,
Sure.
Opponents say that this is a fundamental issue of parental rights. Why do educators think they know what's better for children than their parents? And this is now a political issue as well.
Well, you're right on all those counts, and I think that is the nub of the concern. But in the last 30 seconds, I'd point out that we've gone through an educational catastrophe as a result of COVID, of a lost year. We should be talking about math scores and declining scores, and be focusing on how to address that rather than these issues.
Well, but look, I've been hosting this show for 20 years, and every year we talk about the declining test scores and how the schools are teaching more and more advocacy rather than fundamentals. So this is not a topic that's going to go away anytime soon. When we come back from this short break, we're going to take a couple other tough topics this morning. What in the world is going on at Park and Planning, and how is it going to affect you? Stay tuned.